Hi there, my name is Shane Knudtson. According to childwelfare.gov, in an article titled Long-Term Consequences of Child Abuse and Neglect, an estimated 905,000 children were victims of child abuse or neglect in 2006. The scary part of this is that this number keeps growing every year. This is just one statistic that shows child abuse and neglect is a huge problem in America, and in the world for that matter. My cousin Katie teaches kindergarten in a rundown town in Tennessee, and she sees parents hitting their children all the time, and all these children can do is take it and hope that the right person will save them. For example, one afternoon, a mother came to pick up her son from school. My cousin Katie told the mother that the child was misbehaving in class today, and the mother immediately grabbed the child, took off her belt, and whipped the child many times, right in the hallway. Child abuse is starting to become more common and is something that no child should have to go through. Think of a child going to school and wishing that they didn't have to go home, or vice versa, and wishing that they didn't have to become a statistic. When talking about child abuse, there are many forms that come to mind. These forms include physical abuse, verbal abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, substance abuse, and secondary abuse. I will mention a little bit about each one of these forms. When thinking about child abuse, the first type that comes to people's minds is physical abuse, followed by verbal abuse. Childwelfare.gov talks more about physical abuse and verbal abuse in their article, What is Child Abuse and Neglect? They talk about how physical abuse is non-accidental hitting, punching, beating, or shaking of a child, although there are many other forms of physical abuse. They also state that verbal abuse is when we use words to attack, control, or inflict harm on a child. Here is a good example of a child who has clearly been a part of at least physical and verbal abuse. The hand around the boy's neck in the picture represents a form of physical abuse, while the words written on the hand represent verbal abuse. I know it may be hard to see, but some of the words on the hand include fool, moron, worthless, and you're such an idiot. I thought this was a great visual, clearly showing these two forms of child abuse. Another form of abuse, sexual abuse, is often heard of on television shows or movies such as Law & Order SVU, but unfortunately it is a real form of child abuse, and it does happen in the real world. The article, What is Child Abuse and Neglect? Also states that sexual abuse includes activities by a parent or caregiver, such as fondling a child's genitals, penetration, incest, rape, sodomy, indecent exposure, and exploitation through prostitution or the production of pornographic materials. Not all abuse can be seen right away. Some children are harmed on the inside. For example, there is emotional abuse. In the article titled What is Child Abuse and Neglect? From the webpage childwelfare.gov, says that emotional abuse is often difficult to prove, and therefore Child Protective Services may not be able to intervene without firm evidence of harm or mental injury to the child. Emotional abuse is almost always present when other forms such as physical or sexual abuse are identified. The same article also defines emotional abuse as a pattern of behavior that impairs a child's emotional development or sense of self-worth. This may include constant criticism, threats, or rejection, as well as withholding love, support, or guidance. Along with these forms of abuse, substance abuse is another form. Substance abuse can occur in many different circumstances. According to What is Child Abuse and Neglect, these include prenatal exposure of a child to harm due to the mother's use of an illegal drug or other substance, manufacture of methamphetamine in the presence of a child, selling, distributing, and giving illegal drugs or alcohol to a child, use of a controlled substance by a caregiver that impairs the caregiver's ability to adequately care for the child. There is also one form of child abuse that is not usually recognized. This would be secondary abuse. Coming from an article from EBSCOhost entitled Understanding and Reporting Child Abuse, legal, and psychological perspectives. Secondary abuse often occurs when children observe domestic violence between parents. Seeing parents verbally or physically fighting can have a huge psychological impact on a child, which causes the odds of that child doing the same acts as their parents increase. Now let's review. When talking about child abuse, there are many different forms that come to mind, including physical abuse, verbal abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, substance abuse, and secondary abuse. Today you have heard a little bit about each one of these forms, and a story about a little boy in Tennessee who is hoping that he doesn't have to be another statistic. Although these damages that children receive from child abuse can either go away or fade in their minds, we must not forget that children are suffering. Too many children are being a statistic of child abuse and neglect and have to deal with the consequences that may affect them for the rest of their lives. Thank you.